Hi. For some time, I've been thinking about a podcast. I considered calling it A View from an Old Fart. Since I am now in my 80s, I thought, why not? After all, I certainly am an old fart, and I'll leave it up to you to decide if my thoughts have any value. While I was thinking about doing the podcast, a new addition was made to our family when we adopted a mini Schnauzer pup. After a few days, he acquired his name. We call him Jake. He's 4 months old and has already brought joy to me and my wife, along with training accidents. Like any young animal, he is slowly training us to be potty time and to his other needs. Jake could give a hoot about things I will talk about. By the way, here's Jake. Hey, Jake. You good, pup? Yeah, okay. Regardless about how upset I may get about things, Jake could care less. He will continue to provide me with a kiss or a tickle to my face and tell me that no matter what I think, this too shall pass. So we've decided to call our podcast Jake and the Old Fart. Just know that Jake won't be in all the podcasts, but he will show up occasionally to keep me in line. At any rate, I'll attempt to bring a view of someone who grew up in the 50s and apply that view to today's events. I have a lot of interests, so don't be surprised we dive into sports, history, fads, and of course politics. The main concern I currently have revolves around what Trump has done to the political process. I fear it will not bode well for the future. At any rate, if you have time, here are some of my thoughts. I've been wondering about how we have gotten to the point where people on two sides of a debate no longer listen to one another, but seem to take delight in trying to outshout one another and believe the information provided by the opposite side is either a distortion or an out-and-out lie. Now, the United States was basically founded on two basic groups of individuals. The first group saw that their individual states as the center, and that the people of their state had the right and obligation to determine what was right for them and their state. The second group thought that there were issues that needed to be solved at the federal level. Now, both groups were bright enough to know that there were certain things that individual states could not do on their own. They realized that to become free, they needed to join with each other to defeat a common enemy. That if they were to prosper, they needed certain trade agreements. And if they were to communicate with each other, a system would have to be developed to send messages to one another. They knew something needed to be done at a level higher than what an individual state could manage. The problem occurred when they could not agree on what issues needed to be solved at the federal level. When southern states believed the federal government was about to overstep into states' rights regarding the ownership of slaves, they attempted to form their own country. Even after the Civil War, the issue of where state rights end and federal rights begin continues to be debated. Yeah, that's right, Jake. Over time, the two major political parties drew the line in the sand. On one side was the party of small government, lower taxes, less government involvement, and what appeared to be support for the individual. On the other side of the line was a party that recognized that not all individuals benefited from smaller government, that the rights of many were being denied by the actions of few, and that there were things the government could do to help all Americans. Today, those issues seem to be centered around women's rights, gun control, and migration. In the 2016 election, it was groundbreaking. Perhaps the least qualified candidate ever to represent a major political party ran and won. He was able to unite those who believed that abortion was a sin, groups who believed that something had to be done to stop the dissolution of the white majority through immigration, and there was a fear that the Second Amendment was in jeopardy. He was an individual used to doing things his way, and not restricted by laws and established procedures. A person who made decisions based more on gut feelings than facts. A person who looked at things with a view of what's in it for me. A person who was a long memory or had a long memory of those who did him wrong. He was able to unite these groups who had their own agenda by appealing to their basic urges, be it those groups who supported the right to life, nationalism, or critics to global warming movements. At the same time, he was skillful in making his opponent less appealing. However, when 81 million people said enough, he refused to accept their decision and told the biggest lie of all and refused to concede. This resulted in an attack on the Capitol and on democracy and over 200 years of what made America the greatest country the world has ever seen. Many Americans have yet to grasp that most of their fellow Americans chose a 78-year-old man over a 74-year-old man and would-be dictator, and may be asked to do it again later this year. Over the years, Americans have been positively answering Franklin's challenge of having a democracy if we can keep it. My money is that we will continue to keep it after November the 24th. At any rate, Jake and I would like to say goodbye and enjoy the day.